Okay, welcome to the next RoverCon. And I put in, what is it not working? The red dot on the RoverCon. Before we start, I would just like to show you guys some of the nice projects that I thought some of you put in effort to do it. I haven't exactly seen all the projects because I was playing too much games yesterday. So this are some of the projects that are handed in before 3 p.m. So people who handed it in after 3 p.m. I haven't seen your project. I thought this is pretty cool. Where? How do I make this smaller? Oh no. Okay. I really like to show you guys this, but for some reason it doesn't let me resize the emulator. Okay, so basically what this guy did is that when you click on this thing, it says Rover. Sorry, just give me a minute. I would really like to change the screen size. Yeah, just want to show off that thing. So welcome back to Android Seminar 2. So today we're going to talk more about content management and how you can show certain information. So last week all we did is just to introduce you to the Android framework, where you have basic, layouts, graphical layouts, table views, and then after that you just need to show certain things and change between activities. So today I'm going to show you how we can actually manage content, like content such as stock information, such as CS50 classes, and show it up in your app. So the things that we talk about today will be a little dry, because there won't be simple things like programming in 1 minute, because you guys already know that too well. And I managed to weed some of the people out by saying programming 1 minute. Just look at the number left. Okay, so this is what we're going to talk about today. We need a tool like the I don't know what. So this is basically gibberish. And I'm going to talk about gibberish today because to a computer, the things, the content that you want to show the computer, you want the computer to show is actually gibberish to human beings. And how can people just tell me what are some of the presentations for information that computers can read? So one of them is CSV files, comma separated, values. CSV files. Have any one of you heard about it? So it's basically kind of like Excel spreadsheets, but then when you churn it out into string, each of the values is separated by a comma. And so what are some of the other examples about, some of the things in which content can be presented? Sorry? The text file? Yeah, the text file. Some of the text files includes XML files. So XML is a way to show hierarchy of change. You guys saw with layouts and everything, right? This is the parent, the container, and then some of the subparts. And the next thing is actually JSON files. Anybody heard about JSONs? I'm not sure whether it's JSON or JSONs. I'm using quite JSONs. We had this heated argument and debate over the summer about what it's supposed to be pronounced. I thought it's pretty stupid, but it's called JSON. Okay, so the next slide. So that is the only slide that I'll be talking about today. So today I'm going to just walk you guys through how we can actually get some of the information, and I'll just be programming an app right in front of you within 30 minutes. Sorry? Do you want the slide? I mean, sure. No, you can do the assignment by re-watching the videos, and trust me, the videos will be much more useful than the slides itself. Okay. Okay, so this is an example of a JSON file. So can someone tell me what is it representing? Yeah, so it's basically under the user's tag. So in the JSON file, you have open bracket, open curly brackets, and closing curly brackets. So this means like the main node. And then after that, each of this information, you have like description that's like a label, and then it points to something else. Like it can be a text, or when you have a square opening bracket, in this case, opening square bracket, it means an array. And then when you have a curly bracket and closing curly brackets, it means each of the element in the array itself. So right now it's representing user information, right? About people in Rover. You have Scott, you have Andy. So where do we usually put this information and that we want the app to read? So if you can go back to this part, does this look familiar to everyone? This part? Go back to your resource folder and then go in, there's a raw folder. So when you just start a project, the raw folder wouldn't be shown. And you have to create a new folder and name it raw. So this is where you put like your raw resources, like very long strings or like certain files that you want to show. And that is where you just put it into the raw folder. And here I just put it in as a.json. So this is where the JSON file will be living in. And when I reference it, you can just type r.raw.a. So that would be referenced to this file in the raw folder. Everybody got that? Any questions? Yeah.
Does it have to be named raw?
I think it has to be named raw because like it might be by tradition that people actually name it raw. But I'm pretty sure if you name it something else, it might or might not work. I'm not answering your question, but you can try it out. But most of the time I see that people name it raw, but if you name it like raw, R-A-W-S, maybe it'll work. Not sure about it. Okay, so how can we get the computer to read the information? So we have to write our own parser. So a parser is basically, you give it a bunch of information that means nothing, and then it passes off certain information. But before we can make a parser, we have to make a class that represents the things that we want to represent, right? So in here, look at the JSON file. We have users, right? So can someone tell me, if you want to create a class called user, what kind of information do we need in the class, the user class? The ID, yes. And can you tell me the data type of ID? Int, right? Okay, yeah, that's right. I mean, there's no one correct answer for this, but it seems like in this case, int will be a good representation, and then name will be strings. So I actually went back to the source folder, and I created a package. So right now, the naming of the packages is pretty flexible, but we like to separate the different users and different purposes of the class into different packages. So usually when I put the logic behind it, in terms of like objects that represent information, the parser, for example, I put them under model. Have you guys heard about model view control? So it's just this general idea, if you haven't heard of this fine, it's this general idea in app programming where model means that you'll be handling all the logic, views are where you show the information, and control is where you move from models to actually show the information. So that's where you have the coding involved. Everybody got that? So models will be like things like the user class that I want to represent the user. And he mentioned that I need two things, right? ID and string name. So I just type in the field ID and string name. And then everybody familiar with the constructor? And then after that, I get the get and setters. So do you guys know that there's actually a shortcut to get Java, to get Eclipse to generate some of these things for you? So for the sake of everyone, I'm just going to show it to you. Let's say let's say I just go in. Okay. So I only have two of this field, and I want to create the constructor. All I do is right-click, source, generate constructor using fields, and then I select all of them, and I click OK, and then it's generated for me. The super is pretty lame, so you can just delete it. And the next thing, if you want to get getters and setters, everybody know what's getter and setter. So getters are basically methods or functions that gives you the value of a variable, and setters are basically functions that let you set the variable. And the reason why we need to use this instead of like just saying, let this variable equals to something, it's something called, I think it's called data encapsulation in object-oriented programming language, where you don't want to expose your variable to people so that people can abuse it, but you just want to give them specific methods that they can interact with variables. So source, generate getters and setters, And then if you just want getters, so in this case, I don't really need setters. So I just click generate getters, and then I click, and then you can see that get ID, get returns ID, get name returns name. So everybody got that? So this is the most basic and generic form of a class that represents information, and in this case, users. Okay, so now that we have a class that says user that represents the information we want to get from the JSON files, we have to write our JSON parser, and this is where the code is going to look like. So I'm going to give you guys the source code for this project, and based on this project you can copy and paste certain things into your own project for the assignment, but it's going to be very similar, but I just want you guys to understand what's happening behind the scenes and then add on to some of the things I'll be showing you. So this is a JSON parser. I'm actually using a library function called org.json.json array JSON object. So I think this is a pre-built-in library, so you can just import it and then you can use it with the code below. You don't have to like reference it to external library files. So here I have the first method. It's a public static method, which means that it can be referenced from other classes. And the next thing is that I want to talk about the return value. So based on this, when I click parse user, what it's going to do is that it's going to take in the JSON file in the raw folder, and then after that give me an array list of user objects. I know I'm talking about like abstract stuff here. Everybody get that? If you have questions, just raise up your hand. It's fine. You sure everybody got that? Okay. So I called my method parse user. I give it the context. So context is basically your activity, your page. So you just pass it in. I'm going to take in the page. And you guys will understand why later. Why do we need the context? And then the integer for JSON files. Can someone tell me why is it an integer? Why is the file represented by integer here? It's because right here, we are going to use the r.raw.something. And then this number, the r.something is actually an integer that references somewhere in the application itself, and that points to the JSON file. So that's why it's an integer. And then the return value is an array list of user. So everybody familiar with array list? Array list is basically just like an array, but you can change the size dynamically, so you don't have to declare that this is a size of 10, and then after that destroy it and create another array of size 11. So you can just keep adding on to it. And the array list has the benefit that it is constant time lookup. So if you don't understand what I'm saying, it's fine. It means that if you reference like I want to go to the 10th element in the array list, you don't have to iterate through every single element to the 10th one. You can just go straight to the 10th one. So that's the benefit of using an array list. Yeah. So next I actually declared array list users as new array list. So this is the return value. So this code, you don't have to memorize it. I'm going to give it to you. So this is where I actually have the input stream, so that I open up the JSON file, read the input stream into the JSON, pass the JSON file into an input stream, and then after that get the information out of the JSON file. So this line of code right there, it looks weird, but it's basically just opening up a file stream, reading the things from the JSON file, and then giving you back a string that represents what the information in JSON file is. Get that? Okay, so this is like programming idiom, where you actually see a lot of the same kind of programming code where things here basically you just copy and paste, and at the end of it, it's going to give you the information in JSON file. So this whole chunk of code basically just reads the things in the JSON file, returns you as a string. So look at this. String JString equals to writer.toString. So this is where I get the the information from a JSON file, put it to string, and then I create a JSON object. So the JSON object in this case is a library function. So when you create a JSON object using the JString, it gives you an object that you can play with. So one of this is getting out a JSON array. So like everybody's like falling asleep right now. Okay. So when I get a JSON array, I have to tell it where in the object is the array lying in. And remember the label. Remember here it says user, and then the first element, the second element. right? So the labeling here is called users. So I actually type in I want to get a JSON object or an array called users. So if I change the label here to like something else like text or something, then I have to change this part to text, and then I can get the array out of it. So once you get the array, you iterate through the array with a for loop, as you can see here. And then you use these functions here that says users array dot get JSON object, the nth object in the JSON array, and then get integer, because remember we talked about IDs being represented as integers. So get integer, the label name ID, get string, the label name, and then after that, this part is where, this is the constructor, right, for the user. So we just create a new user with a certain ID, and a certain name, and we just add it to the return users. Here is the array list of users that we declared in the beginning that we want to return. So everybody get that? And then at the end of it, so this is try catch statement. Are people familiar with try and catches? And finally, so when you put code in try, when it doesn't run properly, it's going to throw an exception. So when it throws an exception and if you don't catch it, your app is going to crash by itself because it just stops running. But when you have a catch phrase at the end of a try block, it's going to catch certain exceptions. So here I put exception E, it's going to catch all kinds of exceptions. So exceptions are like errors. So when you reference to an element out of the index like, let's say you have an array of size 10, and then you reference element 11, you're going to get indexed out of bounds, right? So in C, your program just dies. But in Java, the good thing is that you can actually catch the exception and then do something with it. So right here, I am catching all kinds of exceptions. It's bad practice where you catch all exceptions because your app never crashes, but it does not do the right thing either. But right here, I just catch all the exception, and then I print the stack trace, so that when things does not happen, I can go back to read the stack trace, and then find out what's happening behind it. And the finally block here is basically just to close the file input stream, and if it does not happen, I just catch the exception. And then at the end of it, I return users. So this is the end of the function. I'm going to return users, which is the array list of user that we created from the JSON file. So people get it? Okay, very nice. Just wondering, so do people know how to debug an Android application? So in C you have print line, is it called print line? I don't know, like print something out, right? What is it called? Printf. Yes, you have printf in C. But do you guys know how to print stuff in Android? Yes. You log it. Yes, you log it. So logging is basically the same as printf, just that you print it at a different place. So I'm going to show you how you can log certain information. So right now, I'm parsing, I want to find out what are the names of the users I'm getting. So I just type log with a capital L, so that's a class by itself, .d. D stands for debug mode. You can log.e means to log errors, but usually I just use log.d, that's fine. Open bracket. So it takes two arguments. The first one is the label of the log itself. So I want to say that where this log is, I would say that this is in the parser. And then the second information is what we want to print out. So here I want to print out the name, right? I want to find out what name are the users. And why is it highlighted or underlined? It's because you guys didn't import the things from a library. So log actually has a library as well, so just import it and you're fine. Okay, so right now, where is this Android app going to be logging the information to? Obviously, you can't log it to the screen, right? Because it's very disruptive to user experience. So you have something called logcat right here. If some of you might not have logcat, you just go to project, I think Windows, show view. And then if you can find logcat here, you're really lucky. If not, you just click others and you should be able to find logcat somewhere. And then it opens it up here. So if I run the app here, sorry, I need to wait for 100 years for this. But the moral of the story is if you run an emulator or if you run it on the phone, you can see some of these things happening, and it says with the tag that says parser and then the name of the things that you want to show. So you'll be logging right here under logcat. So you can actually debug by logging some of the information and seeing what exactly are the values for the variables here. Oh, my computer is overheating. Okay, in the meantime, let's move on. Okay, so right now we have the parser with this method that actually gives you the information you get out of the JSON file in an array list of user. So now you want to show it. And to show it, I actually have it in the activity. So this time around, I want to go back to, remember your layout files? So I open up this layout file. Okay, so can someone tell me what am I using here? A list view? Yeah, so anyone familiar with list view? Okay, so one guy familiar with list view. So the difference between list view and let's say a text view is that list view can have any number of elements in it. It's like a list with different rows, but then the number of rows can change. Whereas in text view, you only have like one text view, and then what if you have 5 users to show? You have to create 5 text views, and then what if only 3 users? Then you have to change the number again. So list view has the benefit of having a dynamic number of rows to show. So right now, you just have to drag and drop list view. It's in composite. Just drag it, drop it down, and then you get this list view. And then, depending on whether you want to change some of the information, but remember what the ID of the list view is. So right here, it is list view 1. So remember this so they can reference it later. Okay, and for a list view to work, you have to create a row for the list view to show, right? So list view is like a container of rows. And to create a row, I create another XML file that represents a row for the list view. So here it's row_user.xml. And in it, pretend that it is a regular layout. And you can have text views within it. So but think about this as not a page that you're going to show, but information that you want to show in a row. So you have text view, ID to show the ID, and another text view to show the name. Okay? People get it? So this is the row. And then right now, you can't just tell the activity that I want to show this list view. You have to tell it, you have to write something called an adapter that, okay, this is going to get a little confusing right here. An adapter is going to bring up, you give the adapter information, and based on the information, it is going to dictate the rows that the list view is going to show. Am I being confusing here? Okay, I'm going to show it to you. An adapter is basically, look at this. You give it an array list of users, and then based on this, you need an adapter. Okay, sorry. So when you have a list view, you want to show information. You need a list view, and you need to give the list view an adapter to tell it what information to show within the list view. So an adapter is kind of, you can think about it as a bridge between content and the views you want to show. So is that making more sense than what I just said? Okay. So I'm going to go back to show you the main activity itself. So very often when you have information that is going to show multiple, you have views that's going to show multiple information, like list views, like gallery view. I think some of you actually played with gallery view, where you have a gallery of images, and then you can scroll through different images. All these things that shows you a dynamic number of information has to use an adapter. So right now you can see from here, it says this line. Can everybody see this line? So it is a list view, and this line just basically grabs the list view from the main layout, right? And the second line declares an adapter. Then I'm going to show you what the adapter is like, but you create a new adapter, and then after that, you have list view, and then you set the adapter of the list view. So just this 3 lines is enough to show the list view that you want to have. Okay, so how should an adapter look like? So this is the user adapter. And usually for list view, we extend array adapter. And you have to type in the type of the information that you want to show. So the information we want to show is for a user. So each of these rows shows a user. And then we have, this is a global variable, users. And then for this, you need this line that says super something something. The first reference you have, row.layout.rowUser, is to reference the XML for the row. So people know that? So this is the row_user, so that is the XML that we want to show for the rows. And then the second the second ID that we put down here, you just have to give any ID that points to a text view, because an array adapter is traditionally used for text views. So for here, you just have to give it an ID that points to a text view. So if you remember, we have two of the IDs. r.id.id shows the text view for the ID. r.id.name shows the name in the text view for the row.xml. So just give it any one of it. And then the last thing is users, which is the information, the array list of information you want to give it to. And then the next important method that you want to override is this thing called getView. So it is this function that will be called when it wants to show certain information. So it calls getView for every row that it has. And then based on that, getView returns a view, and then you'll be shown as a row in the list view. So people getting it? I know it's getting very boring right now. Okay, so these are basic idioms that you need in Android programming. A lot of this might look to you to be overwhelming, but after a while, some of these programming patterns just keep appearing in front of you again and again and again. So when you want to make like photo galleries, you see this whole thing again. You have getView, you have adapters. If you want to create more rows for these views, you'll see the same thing happening again and again. So it's overwhelming right now, but after 1 or 2 trials, you guys will be familiar with it. And then the next thing is that, you know, you get the view from this. So this thing, view here, basically gets the row view that you want to show. And within the row view, you can find out the text view. Like, I want to grab the text view that is called ID, and then I set the text of it. And this thing is basically, I want to get the user information from the array list of users that I have, and then set the ID to the view that I get. So this part is, I think this part should be familiar for you guys. It's just a little confusing right now. Everybody can follow? And the same for name. And then you return the view for the row. So the view here represents the view for the row. Yep. So once you have this set up, you go back to main menu. All you have to do is like, you declare user adapter, and then you have new user adapter, provide it with a context, which is this, which is the activity itself. And then provide it with the array list of information that you get from here. So here, remember the JSON parser that we wrote. We just get .parse user, and then we get back array list of users, and then we put the users in to user adapter. And then after that, we just set the adapter, and then we are all done for the activity itself. So how should it look like? Okay, so eventually we go through all this work, and it's all going to show you 2 things. The first row is the ID number. The first text view in the row is ID number. So you can think of this as one row view, and then on top you have a text view that says ID number, and the bottom it says text. And the same for this. But if you have more information in the JSON file, it's going to populate everything, and you have many rows. And then you can scroll for each of them. You can control the scrolling and things like that based on the attributes in the XML. So, any questions right now? Is it too fast? Is it overwhelming for you guys? Whoa, what happened to everyone? Okay, so do you guys have any questions? If you guys don't have any questions, I'm going to talk a little about the assignments that you have for this week. So just in case you guys don't understand what I was saying, you guys can rewatch the video, or you can go Google what is an adapter, what is a list view, or how to set up a list view. Okay, for the assignments this week, I think I opened the wrong assignments pack. I need to change the name. It's just, I call it game. Okay, so this is the objective of it. Basically, you guys have experienced intents, right? Most of you guys got it right, and how to use intents to have different views, different activities. So this time around, I want you to build on your existing application. So, and you have to have a third activity in your existing application. So most of you just have 2 activities, right? So you have a third one. And the third activity is going to just have a list view in it that shows you information. Where should the information come from? It can be a JSON file, it can be from a CSV file. So as you can tell, like we have libraries for all of these things. So for the JSON file, I'm using a library just now, which is inbuilt in the Android itself. So if you want to work with CSV files, you can actually do that as well. Just find the right library for Android, put it in, and then you can pass the information from a CSV file. And some of these other things includes XML files. So XML, personally, I think is the hardest to parse. So if you guys like some challenges, which I don't think you guys will have time to do it, you guys can play with XML files. Okay, so you can grab some of this information file, like a JSON file, and put it in the raw folder. And then the same thing I did, you write an adapter for it, you implement a list view, and then you do some debugging based on log.d that you have. Okay, so the purpose of this comp, as I was telling some people who came for office hours, is actually to get you guys to build an application towards the end of the entire 3 weeks. And you guys can actually use this application for your CS50 final project. Is everyone in CS50? I guess so, right? So you guys have a final project at the end of it, and there's no one in CS50 who actually knows how to create an Android app. So if you write an Android app, people think that you have tons and tons of lines of code. I actually wrote an Android app with just 2 pages, and I have a lot of code. People think that was amazing, so I just got an A for it. So if you guys actually implemented some of this, that's why some of these objectives are meant to be vague. I don't want you guys to have the same thing between everyone, but if you guys understand what's happening, you can implement a button when you click to make a sound out of it and things like that. So things like this, and eventually you guys will all have different applications, and then you can use it for your CS50. So yeah, don't tell anyone I said that. This is like cheating. Okay, so to build off your previous project, as I said, you need another activity. It's called a game because, is there a question why is it called a game? It's for you guys to have creativity to make it fun. So for next week, I will talk a little about database and how you can store data permanently on your application. So it's going to get increasingly boring, more and more boring. But so if you guys can stay on, you guys will be doing great. So ambitious students can actually pass information straight from a website. So some of the live information you can think about is like Yahoo Finance. You actually get live feeds from a JSON file, or you can call for a CSV file, and it provides you with a URL. So if you find out, if you Google how to get a URL and how to get information by querying a URL, you can actually straight away just bypass putting the information in a raw folder and things like that. Just get information straight from a URL and then do the relevant parsing. So you can have a good idea maybe is to pass stock information, like how much each of the stock is. So you have the stock name and the stock price and things like that. But by putting information straight from the website. And another example is called a CS50 causes API. So when you guys move on to final project for CS50, they're going to have a few API sources for you guys. So CS50 has it for Shutterboy, for causes as well. So whatever you're doing now, it sounds boring, but it's going to be really helpful for your CS50 final project. So you can have CS50 causes. This is what I did for my CS50 project. I just pull information from the causes API in the JSON file, and then I pass it, and then I have a list of causes, and they think it's amazing. Well, I don't know, man. Okay. So you can have anything innovative to happen. So I will give bonus points for you guys to find out how you can click items on the list view and do something with it. So remember how we have clicking buttons the previous time? You register an on-click listener, right? I'm going to give you a hint right here. You can do the same for list view, but you have to set an on-item click listener instead of an on-click listener, on-item click listener for the list view. And then based on that, you can actually, the same programming idiom, you have a new on-item click listener, and then what it's going to do after that. So you're going to see some of these programming patterns coming up again and again and again. But once you get the hang of it, you can just program Android apps very easily. So when you click it, you might want it to show more information, the relevant information and things like that. And the last thing, the setup is going to be the same, your name and everything. But this time around, do not email me. It's pretty scary. I got too many emails. So Andy is going to send out information for iOS and website where you just upload your file onto a central server. It's going to be the comp website where you type in your name. But Andy is going to send out information 1 day before the submission. So if you want to submit it before, 2 days before that to show that you're very good, you can email me. If not, if you want to submit it on the last day or 1 day before the last day, you can just upload it to the website. So it's easier for the bosses to track how you guys are doing. Yeah. Okay, so you can do anything you desire. Creativity, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so some of these things that you might need help with. You can go to Android documentation, but I know for some of you this is actually too long to read and I'm not really interested to read as well. Google is the best thing. Or you can go to Stack Overflow. So Stack Overflow is basically like Google, but it's for programmers. So if you have any questions about adapter, list views, for example, or how to make a custom list view, you can just type it in, go to Stack Overflow. Sometimes people